Hello, this is Richard Wilson. I'm coming to you from Havana, Cuba, and I'm CEO of the Family Office Club. And I'm just finishing up my EO retreat here, and I wanted to record a short video on the state of direct investments in the family office industry here in Cuba. First of all, I guess to cut the part of it short, there are no family offices in Cuba officially. What there are monopolies that families have by working with the government and joint ventures. There are foreign companies that have put in direct investments, and since the mid to late 1980s, 1990s have been growing their business holdings in hotels and restaurants, etc. In the city. Of course, there's families that have illicit black market activities going on, but I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about above board joint ventures. But really what's happened here is that since the government controls all the currency and the quasi-banking system that is in place, it makes it so that there is no private banking, there is no wealth management, and because of the size of the country right now, there aren't enough $100 million plus or $50 million plus families to have a traditional family office industry in a country like this. So in the future, I think there will be, but also, Cuban Americans are known for being very successful in South Florida in doing business with each other and growing their various business holdings. And so I think there is a family office, there is family office business to be done between Cuban families and between Cuban and other Caribbean and South Florida families, that is for sure. I wanted to also add to this video what's going on in terms of the ability to place direct investments into Cuba. We actually met with somebody who is high up in the government. I don't want to mention them because I don't want them to get in trouble for what they told us, but we went to their home for 3 hours yesterday, and they were a former minister in the government. And then we also had someone who has been here since 1985 managing direct investments for a very large corporation, which is family owned out of Europe. And we talked to them about the reality of what's going on here and what is changing. And apparently most transactions, because all of commerce has to be done by the government effectively, the only things you can really invest in here could be a proposed plan with the government to do a joint venture where they would typically own the land, and then you would own the business on top of it. And it's a private business, but essentially the government has all the regulations, the banking systems, the laws, and also the land underneath of it is very tightly controlled. Also, you could buy property here, but it has to be in the name and title of a Cuban citizen. So to actually get the transaction done, you have to get some sort of agreement in place. And maybe you give 5% to the Cuban citizen that hopefully you trust, or have some way of enforcing that he's going to allow you to use that property and have the true rights to it long term, and that's not going to change at some point. Also, in terms of investing in businesses here, it's a very long process. I asked about the importing of some wine from a royal family we're associated with in Europe, and I asked about a tourist spot that could be opened up down here in the square. You can see it's very tourist oriented square, and effectively they said, well, you have to be careful, even a really well established, really well known businessman from Cuba who's a Cuban citizen wanted to open up a business here, and after a long time of trying, he wasn't able to get it done. So in short, it's very challenging to get business done here, but the very fact that I'm standing here in the middle of Havana and we're able to travel around freely and walk around safely here and be able to use our US dollars and fly here and be able to experience what Cuba is like, and be able to do that right now before everything is developed tourist-wise, I think it's interesting in itself, and it does show progress. But there's not going to be a big open free economy here, I think, in the next year or two. This is going to take a decade or two to unfold and have capitalism creep in more and more and more, I believe. So this is Richard Wilson, CEO of the Family Office Club, coming to you from Havana, Cuba. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next video.